proudly showed off his new physique. A professional wrestler spotted him and invited him to enter a wrestling tournament, convinced he was strong enough to become the champion. Without thinking twice, John happily accepted, already imagining himself holding the winner's trophy. Meanwhile, Nobiter and Doraemon discovered the muscles were completely fake. They looked incredibly strong but couldn't even lift a heavy cabinet. Sunio could barely walk with his oversized legs, and Shizuka regretted changing her appearance after people started making fun of her new nose. They hurried to get the restoring spray, only to realize Doraemon had left it at home. By the time they reached the arena, John's match had already begun. He charged at his opponent with confidence but was knocked back every time. Surprisingly, his opponent couldn't hurt John either.
Not what I meant by the cheese. Oh, I can't go to this one.
How you doing, folks? It's the birthday party at the gift shop. Gift shop's on a holiday sale, but it's on record when when words fail, music speaks. Radio, the label. You know how to, yes, I have to make you more reddish and blonde. Supposed to be dirty blonde. In cameras, I don't know what it really looks like. Normally, I have a mustache and this usually, or a goatee on there. Kiddo, it looks like. How you can tell I'm a straight person. And this usually, or a goatee on there, to show how big it is. This is my kiddo. It looks like. There it goes. Now it shows up. Go, go. Do it again. Go, make a noise. Look at the poster I got. How you can tell I'm a straight person. Ready? I'll show you the picture. Woohoo! Sport Live Music. And that's, what is that? That is a type of, it's a bone.
Gorilla bone or some type of baboon bone or tooth. Not really sure. Or a bird claw. Or a bone. I can't really tell. Lion monkey. Yeah, sure. Okay.
It's the real deal. With the green and white and diamond together with spittered ink. Mr. Bree, the Trump-filled stuff of themes that are to an extent a girl and soon to be what is that? All safe stuff.
Oh, real.
Oh, well. I stay rooted in my purpose to find space and time. I live and learn and watching my courage grow. Obligations are 우린 발을 멈추지 않아. Yet to come. We're gonna touch the sky.
Have you seen this strange nose? Introducing the proboscis monkey.
A curious and muscular giant gorilla enters a rhino's cage in a zoo. This giant rhino, which can weigh up to 2,500 kilos, gets angry when it sees the gorilla. The gorilla plans to defeat the 10-foot-tall ape that could... In 1970, a doctor removed the... Remember this viral video? Chimpanzee Oliver, 1957-2012, stood out with his bald head and
This is an orangutan compared to a human. Adult male orangutans can reach a height of 5 feet and can have 8-foot arm spans. They can weigh up to 300 pounds and lift about 500 pounds. And the people didn't evolve from monkeys. Brand new whip from the pender.
Missionaries from the...
I love this. You should make me these, dude, for my lunch.
I know, they're really good, aren't they? Yummy, yummy. Sandwich with cheese and pepperoni.
10 feet tall.
I could teach you
the largest ape that ever lived. And for
centuries, people ground its teeth into powder.
Good times. Worst injury.
What if Bigfoot?
What the heck is that? That's cute. That piece.
Does that taste good?
Yeah.
I added a lot of pepper
What
to
if
it,
Bigfoot
so...
was?
It's alright. It's kind of hard. You know,
Chester Bennington
Crunchy,
acted.
dude?
With someone welfare. One babe. I thought ChatGPT would. Hey, why are you following me?
We hunt demons.
What?
Demons and
I'm
spirits.
about to roll
Just leave me
something.
alone.
Okay.
All right. This tiny.
Hello there, Miss Cutie. Nice hair.
And the award for best cat video goes to.
You more.
And the award.
This tiny. Hey, why? I thought ChatGPT. One guy was doing well.
Chester Bennington.
What if Big?
Buddy, I'm busy. You got legs?
I bet you weren't aware that some apes, like chimpanzees, actually eat small monkeys like...
So the main difference is that these guys, pumpkins, especially Gigantopithecus, have very thick enamel, unlike humans.
Julian, this is an interesting comparison, because if I zoom in a little bit, you can see just how big these molars are. In comparison...
What if I told you giant apes once roamed the Earth?
Giant
In 1935, a
esophagus.
German paleontologist stumbled upon a giant
Ape.
fossilized molar at a...
A 10-foot ape lived alongside early humans for 500,000 years.
Our final giant brings us closer to...
What if Bigfoot was based on something real?
Our final...
A 10-foot.
What if I told...
So the main difference is that these guys...
By paleontologist Gustav Heinrich Ralph von Königswald, who found them in the form of teeth sold in Chinese apothecaries as dragon bones. Some scientists have hypothesized that Gigantopithecus might have been ancestors of modern orangutans or closely related to early hominids. However, evidence for these theories remains insufficient to date.
What if I told you...
Have you seen this strange note?
What if I...
By paleontologist Gustav Heinrich.
Dude, you gotta change your clothes, man.
In the warm forests of southern Asia, across a span of time that began more than 2 million years ago,
Shush, man.
and
Don't
ended
interrupt the
only
movie
a
just
few
'cause you hear a
100,000
sound.
years before our own
You
age,
gotta watch the
there
whole
lived an
scene
ape
before you
so
even look at
large
it.
that it stands beyond anything alive today. It towered as much as 3 meters tall when it reared upright, half again the height of a large man,
Have that
and it
instinct
may have
every day.
weighed as
Good
much as
job.
300
You're getting
kilograms,
good at it.
the weight of 2 or 3 grown people together. It was covered
Damn,
in
that's a
coarse
lot of
hair.
Lucifer. Here
It
you go.
moved through the forests on all fours, and perhaps sometimes upright, and it fed on the tough and fibrous plants of the warm woodlands, grinding them down with the largest teeth and the most massive jaws of any ape that has ever lived. Scientists have learned the family relationships of Gigantopithecus and confirmed its
Also could
kinship
be a
with the
sloth
orangutan.
claw.
It's one of the most
Ooh, look at this
remarkable.
giant sloth.
Picture a giant sloth. Most people build this.
I like a sloth. Oh my gosh, dude! What do you want to think for you too?
On every nature calendar. Just
Jeez.
scale up to the size of 2 living things. Slow, sleepy, harmless in the exact same way, just bigger. That image is wrong in almost every way it's possible to be of one of these animals. Jefferson
Claw tooth. Giant tooth.
standing flat on
Or
but on
bone.
Darwin.
Man, show me the
Animals
other
survive
things.
roughly 3 feet taking steps. An animal walking with
The 9-banded armadillo,
but in
a creature of the dusk.
the
sniffs the dry earth, searching for its evil meat.
Of course you would do that in the middle of me.
Innovation moves fast.
Exploring. Shut up. Give me useless info. Thank you.
What if I told you an entire... But the Ice Age wasn't ruled by gentle giants alone.
Wow.
Because what hunted these giants?
An animal, bone, or tooth or something.
But even this legendary hunter wasn't the only nightmare roaming the Ice Age.
Less fortunate.
Standing over 3 meters tall, the short-faced bear was a true giant. For years, scientists believed it was the ultimate super predator. But the truth proved even more fascinating. Then researchers uncovered creatures so bizarre, they seemed almost impossible. And what you're about to see next may be the strangest animals evolution has ever created. Imagine walking into a world where every creature looked like it belonged on another planet. One giant carried a horn so enormous, it may have inspired the legend of the unicorn. Weighing several tons.
What would happen if a human and a gorilla faced each other? When it comes to punch strength, the average boxer's punch has about 776 pounds of force.
So the main difference,
If you fire a bullet at a gorilla that's charging at you, most people think it would kill it instantly. But that's not exactly what would happen. A gorilla's skin can be up to an inch.
so the main difference,
What would happen if a human and a gorilla faced each other?
so
If you fire
10 feet tall.
the monkey,
10 feet tall, that's a gorilla. What's up? Hello. Yo. That's cool. Should be tons of document trying to get to this.
What if I told you giant apes once roamed the earth? In 1935, a German paleontologist stumbled upon a giant fossilized molar at a Chinese apothecary. These supposed dragon bones hinted at a massive creature, Gigantopithecus.
Our final giant brings us closer to home. In the same forests where our own human ancestors were evolving, lived an ape of mythical proportions. This was no myth. This was Gigantopithecus. Standing 3 feet taller than the average primate, Gigantopithecus was the largest primate to ever walk the earth. For millions of years, it coexisted with early humans. But despite its fearsome size, it wasn't a monster. We know from its massive fossilized teeth and jaws that it was a gentle giant. Its diet consisted mainly of tough, fibrous plants like bamboo.
what if Bigfoot was bait?
Our final
What if I told you giant apes once roamed the earth?
Just saying. Crazy.
Gigantic has its own perks. The bigger you are, the less vulnerable you are to predators. In addition, you'll be able to cover a great deal of territory when searching for food. But why have some of the biggest species in the animal kingdom disappeared? When it comes to apes, you may be wondering, what is the biggest ape that ever lived? How did they become that big, and are they still existing up to this day? Make sure to watch until the end, because for this video, we'll talk about the largest ape that ever walked on Earth. According to records, Gigantopithecus is the largest ape that ever lived. Only a few fossils of Gigantopithecus have been recovered, specifically the teeth and jawbones. The first evidence of Gigantopithecus was bought in a China. Other skeletal elements were most likely they had a diet similar to giant pandas. Perhaps bamboo is a major food source. However, new researchers have done chemical analysis.
They're not
Gigantopithecus' extinction.
They have a few teeth.
In fact, it's not only the Gigantopithecus that's now non-existent because of their size. Other animals that no longer live on Earth due to their size are giant sloths. Another factor that's believed to have contributed to their only one species of the Gigantopithecus genus has ever been identified, which is called G. blacki. The name was in honor of Davidson Black.
Dude, what a wild little animal. So, for any of you guys who don't know, you guys want to get rid of Shay. They're here too. Literally, that's all I knew St. Augustine for. Beautiful. So, clouded leopards are actually native to places like Nepal and one of my favorite countries to hang out in, Thailand. And they're amazing cats. Like my conditioner, huh?
He said you need a haircut.
Yeah. Chuffing part is what got me. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard clouded leopard chuff before, so that's really cool. There's only a few places I've been around that have clouded.
Yeah, they're really cool. One of the most ancient cat breeds. It's actually thought that most big cats originated with the clouded leopards because they date back to billions of years ago.
I mean, like, when you look straight at their face, it almost looks like a snow leopard. Oy! I'm glad.
Scientists call it Gigantopithecus, the greatest great ape that ever was. And for us fellow primates, there are some serious lessons to be learned in how it lived and why it disappeared. So, the story of Gigantopithecus begins with some of the smallest of physical clues, teeth. And they weren't found in the field, but bones were found in a Chinese. If you were to go for a walk in the forests of Southeast Asia during the Ice Age, you'd probably see a lot of awesome and familiar creatures, like rhinos, tapirs, and hyenas. But an animal once wandered these woods that was unlike anything you've ever seen. About 3 meters tall and weighing up to 500 kilograms, this beast was probably twice the size of a modern gorilla. Scientists call it Gigantopithecus, the greatest great ape that ever was. And for us fellow primates, there are some serious lessons to be learned in how it lived and why it disappeared. So, the story of Gigantopithecus begins with some of the smallest of physical clues, teeth. And they weren't found in the field, but in a drugstore. In 1935,
With Walmart's college finds, you can make the influence real.
All this for your 40 followers?
Manifest.
One of the most exciting things about Moana is the music.
After the extinction of the Gorgonopsids, the Earth entered a saber-tooth cold spell that lasted for a long time. A very long time, with no known saber-tooth groups even popping up during the Mesozoic. And this is a bit surprising, seeing the Mesozoic lasted for, nearly 200 million years, and gave rise to things like dinosaurs, who were absolutely mental, and a bunch of other crazy types of life. So, you would think that saber-toothed predators popped up at least once. But alas, this evolutionary trait was a no-show, and it wouldn't show its face again until the Cenozoic, which is sometimes referred to as the age of mammals. Which is a bit fitting, seeing how the second instance of saber teeth involved yours truly. Not me, but a mammal. But don't get too excited, because I am not talking about saber-toothed cats just yet. Rather, an ancient group that most people have never even heard of, and in my opinion takes the cake for the least well-known group in this video. And that's the Machairoidinae, meaning dagger-like. These guys first started popping up in the fossil record some 52 million years ago, during the Middle Eocene. And they seem to have been quite an exclusive group, because as of now, only 3 different genera are known of: the Apataleurus, Diegoaleurus, and Machairoides. The first mentioned genus, Apatylurus, actually translates to false cat, and that's because this family looked like, well, cats, having long tails, slender bodies, and superficially similar features. But it was no cat, nor were they even a part of the Phalloidea. Instead, they belonged to their very own family, the Oxyanidae, who were placental mammals like us, but far more ancient, and were one of the earlier groups to arise following the extinction of dinosaurs. All of them were carnivorous, but it was just the Machaeroidenae that leaned into the hypersized canines, and had a knack for fluvial and floodplain environments, which were warm and humid, with the 3 genera being found throughout North America and Asia. Within these ecosystems, they did tend to be plentiful, but they were by no means the largest fries around, with other bigger predators being present. And overall, the Machaeroidenae didn't get any larger than small dogs, with the heaviest species being about the size of a golden retriever. Adorable. However, before you get too googly-eyed, I want you to try to picture a golden retriever viciously mauling and taking down a rhino or horse. Kind of hard to see, right? And yet, the Machaeroidenae may have been doing this on the regular, considering that their saber teeth were officially designed to punch holes through lots of flesh. And rhinos plus horses were amongst the most common animals at the time. And another good sign that they were giant slayers was the presence of absurdly powerful forelimbs relative to their size, which would have come in handy for pinning animals much larger than themselves. But sadly, these adaptations proved futile for the Machaeroidenae, as unbeknownst to them, a challenger was lurking in the background that would eventually dethrone and outcompete them. And ironically, it was none other than another fellow sabertooth, the Nimravidae. And despite this marking the first known time that 2 saber-toothed predators lived at once, the 2 groups were not closely related, with the Nimravids having separately evolved their saber teeth about 41 million years ago. Additionally, while both were mammals, the Nimravids didn't even belong to the same order, and instead hailed from a group that might sound a bit familiar, the Feliformia, which still exists to this day and consists of cat-like carnivorans, cats included. But let me be clear, these lot were not kitties, just more closely related, as the 2's ancestors shared a common ancestor from whom they diverged from about 50 million years ago, not long after the Canoformia-Feliformia split. And ultimately, cats would end up waiting a bit longer for their very own saber teeth, while the Nimravids, on the other hand, quickly evolved theirs. But what exactly gave them an edge over the already existing Machaeroidenae? Well, some of it had to do with the saber teeth themselves, as not all are made equal, apparently. In the case of the Machaeroidenae, theirs were more primitive and rudimentary, possessing minimal bracing support, shorter phalanges which protect the teeth, and less adaptations for actually cutting once contact with prey was made. Meanwhile, the Nimravids had much more specialized canines that were better protected and reinforced, allowing them to make deeper, more powerful bites on tougher hides. Additionally, the jaws of the Nimravids allowed for, relatively speaking, larger gapes while biting, which helped them easily puncture and destroy vital organs. And then, as if they needed any more advantages, they also tended to be larger and more muscular. But with all this said, their real kicker was actually their adaptations for locomotion, as Nimravids had broad locomotor diversity, with many being well adapted for running, while the Machaeroidenae were typically better climbers. And usually being a good climber versus a runner is no biggie, as they allow animals to occupy different niches. But during the Middle Eocene, the world experienced a cooling and drying trend that led to many lush forests transforming into 28 kilograms or 723 pounds, akin to the size of a large lion. So it should come as no surprise to hear that the heftier genera were usually apex predators, very much capable of taking down megafaunal herbivores. Yet, many of the smaller guys were top predators as well, and across the board you could find Nimravids that were jaguar, leopard, cheetah, and even bobcat-sized, like the Nanosmilus. In this immense range, you got them were related to modern marsupials. And with no Nimravids around spoiling the fun, they were able to evolve uninterrupted, which eventually led to their own hypercanines. And supposedly we mammals have a knack for them. And by 20 million years ago, you can now find a new family of Sparacidons in South America, the Thylacospilidae, who were the 4th instance of saber-toothed predators thanks to convergent evolution. And boy oh boy, were they an odd bunch, arguably being the most easily identifiable group. And this was largest, Thylacospilus, was still no larger than a jaguar, and recent studies even suggest that this comparison could be way off, with a 2024 paper stating a max size of just 41 kilos or 90 pounds. So imagine a large-sized dog, but just a bit more cat-like and with giant saber teeth. May seem a tad underwhelming, but this was all the group needed, and they would persist for millions of years, blissfully unaware, presumably, that they were part of a duo of coexisting saber-tooths. However, if you can believe it or not, the
So go ahead and picture a saber-toothed tiger in your mind right now.
Right. You're probably imagining, a lone cat-like beast just prowling through the freezing snow.
Exactly, waiting to pounce on a woolly.
Rivals for territory? The strict definition requires that those protruding canines be actively used for land-based predation.
So it is exclusively an adaptation for hunting.
Exclusively, yes.
Okay, so with those parameters locked in, protruding canines, strictly for hunting on land, I want to wind the clock back to
Monitor lizard. But with
this bite and retreat tactic.
It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, because I originally assumed. But if they were the
compatible with their massive, crushing skulls.
Wow, so it literally took a global reset, the asteroid wiping out the dinosaurs and the dawn of the age of mammals to bring the design back from the dead.
Bringing us to the Eocene epoch.
Predator stars.
Exactly. So the Nimravs evolved protective bony flanges on their lower jaws.
Like built-in scabbards.
Essentially, yes. When the mouth was closed, the upper sabers rested safely against these bony downward protrusions, protecting them from mechanical stress.
That is so smart.
And furthermore, the structural anchoring of their jaw joints allowed for a massively wide gape. They could open their mouths to an unbelievable degree, clearing those giant teeth completely out of the way for devastating bite.
But the real deciding factor wasn't just the jaw, it was the changing planet, right?
Always is. The climate of the Eocene began to cool and dry out significantly. Those lush, dense jungle.
The history of life on our planet is recorded in layers of stone, but the pages are often torn and missing. For over 50 years, the story of the prehistoric skies was dominated. Argued they were just gliders, leaping off cliffs and hoping for a thermal wind to catch them. Others suggested they weren't much more than oversized scavengers that stayed grounded. But then the understanding of quadrupedal launch changed everything. These titans were not birds, they were biological catapults. They would lean forward, load the tension into their chest and wing muscles, and then explode upward in a single violent motion. This allowed them to clear the ground in seconds, transitioning from a heavy, earthbound walker to a master of the skies. However, even with this specialized launch, there is a limit. Every biological structure has a breaking point where the weight of the animal becomes too much for the wings to support. The bones of most pterosaurs are marvels of engineering. Hollow, air-filled, and paper-thin to keep the weight down. This is why Quetzalcoatlus would crest.
With Walmart summer style, you can leave quite an impression.
That stood nearly 3 feet tall, dwarfing the rest of its body. Archaeologists have debated for years whether this was used as a biological rudder, a sail to catch the wind, or a vibrant display to ward off rivals. Whatever its purpose, it proves that nature was experimenting with radical designs to squeeze every bit. Islands, located in what is now modern-day Romania, was a place called Hatzeg. This was not just a piece of land, it was an evolutionary pressure cooker. It was a place where the standard laws of biology were discarded in favor of things much more strange. In the rest of the world, it was the era of giants. This was the time when long-necked dinosaurs, the sauropods, grew to the size of multi-story buildings. But on an island, space is a luxury, and food is a finite resource. When a population of massive animals becomes trapped on an island over millions of years, nature is forced to innovate. The result is a phenomenon known as insular dwarfism. Imagine a world where giants began to shrink. The massive, long-necked dinosaurs that should have been 80 feet long were forced to adapt to the limited vegetation of Hatzeg. Over generations, they became smaller and smaller, until they were no larger than a modern pony. These were the Magurosaurus, fully grown, mature, long necks that could walk under the belly of their mainland cousins without bowing their heads. On this island, the Titans had become miniatures. But this shrinking of gravity finally rebelled. This wasn't just a new species, it was a new category of predator. The archaeologists realized they weren't looking at a creature that merely occupied the sky. They were looking at the animal that had filled the power vacuum of Hatseg Island. The feathered serpent of the Americas finally had a rival, and this rival wasn't interested in soaring gracefully over the plains. It was built for a much more violent purpose. When the reconstruction was finally complete, it revealed an animal that shouldn't have been able to fly, yet it clearly did. It was named Hatsegopteryx. To understand why it dethroned the giants of the Americas, you have to look past the wingspan and focus on the sheer mass. While Quetzalcoatlus was built like a high-performance glider, Hatsegopteryx was built like a piece of heavy artillery. The most shocking feature was the neck. In most giant pterosaurs, the neck is long and relatively thin, generating the massive amount of lift required to get this armored titan off the ground. When this animal stood on the earth, it didn't look like a fragile bird. It looked like a 16-foot-tall wall of muscle and leather. It was the ultimate winged tank. This anatomy was the direct answer to the environment of Hatseg Island. We spent decades believing that Quetzalcoatlus was the limit of prehistoric flight. We were satisfied with the record. Suggested that it was capable of sustained, efficient swimming. Its big, oddly shaped tail was likely used for propulsion, similar to that of a modern dolphin. Shastasaurus was a carnivore that probably fed on other marine reptiles and large fish. Its elongated snout, filled with sharp teeth, suggests it was a specialized predator. But there were other specialized predators that would take its place millions of...
My action figures fight just like I imagined as a kid, and now yours can too. All it takes is one...
If you stand in the middle of Peru's Pisco Desert today, all you... Earth was undergoing a period of dramatic climate change. The planet was gradually cooling. The Antarctic ice caps were expanding, changing the ocean currents. This change triggered an important geological phenomenon called upwelling. Along the coast of Peru, where the Pisco Desert is today, strong winds blew surface waters offshore, pulling nutrient-rich cold water from the depths to rise and replace it. This water current was like a growth stimulant for the ocean. It nourished billions of tons of plankton. Plankton fed small fish. Small fish fed big fish. And most importantly, it created a boom in the whale population. This was the golden age of medium-sized baleen whales. Based on genealogical tree analyses and fossil vertebrae, in nature, there are limits. Even take off. Why did it develop an unusually short and thick neck, contrary to all optimal designs for flight? And scariest of all, why did a flying creature evolve to become the apex predator dominating the land? The answer lies. And it wasn't just them. Telmetosaurus, a duck-billed dinosaur, hadrosaur, also shared the same fate, shrinking to only about 5 meters long. Hatseg Island ended. Quetzalcoatlus's neck was nearly 3 meters long, but it was slender and delicate, like the jib of a crane. Its cervical vertebrae were long and tubular, with thin bone walls. This design was perfect for reaching down from above, using a beak as sharp as tweezers to snatch small lizards, crabs, or hatchling dinosaurs. But this design had a fatal weakness: brittleness. If Quetzalcoatlus tried to attack a large, struggling prey, that spindly neck would be subjected to immense torsional forces. It could snap in half like a dry branch. To hunt dwarf dinosaurs weighing hundreds of kilograms on Hatseg Island, it didn't need precision. Scratching their heads. With a head as big as a car, its dense, spongy-boned neck, and that massive muscle mass, the estimated to be up to 250 kilograms, even 300 kilograms. To visualize, it weighed as much as an adult male Bengal tiger, or 3 large men combined. How do you throw a tiger into the sky and tell it to fly? If it needed a takeoff run like an airplane or an albatross, it would need a runway a kilometer long and a powerful headwind. It's for 60% of the body's total muscle. It is like a gymnast with the arms of the Hulk and the legs of a regular person. The takeoff mechanism works as follows. Hatzegopteryx crouches down, shifts its center of gravity forward, and leans heavily on its wrist joint or maneuver, reaching cruising speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour. Imagine that scene. A monster as big as a building standing tall on the ground. Then suddenly, in the blink of an eye, it shoots into the sky with a roar of tearing air. It is the most eloquent proof that it performs a simple but devastating blow. The hammer strike. It pulls its muscular neck back and launches its heavy head forward with terrifying speed. The rock-hard beak slams directly into the prey's back. The impact force...
My risk management is terrible.